Good evening, everybody. It's sunset. Anyway, I hope y'all been having a good day. I've been having a really good day. We had some church today. I have church all day. I had church this morning. I did my sermon. I've been praying today after sermons online. I was late. I didn't realize what time it was. I'm late today with the with sunset. I almost lost track of time, but I figured out what time it was, and I said I better do this. And as soon as I'm done with this, I'm gonna get right back to what I was doing. I'm praying. But anyway, so I barely studied this. So, but we're gonna get through it because, like I said, I've been caught up with the Lord. So I mean, He takes precedence even over lessons. Ah, anyway, we're fixing to do a message on. And I hope the mosquitoes aren't going to eat me up out here because I mean, I don't know why they're getting so bad this time of year. This summer they've been pretty good all summer, and all of a sudden it's just, they've been horrible the last few weeks. I don't understand it. But anyway, the devil. That's my opinion. So, where are we at? 2 Kings chapter 12. The message is on faithful stewardship and the consequences of compromise. So we come in 2 Kings 12. We learned about Joash in the last chapter, the 7-year-old that was made king. Well, now this chapter it's talking about Joash, and he's done growed up some. And while Joash was under Jehoiada, the priest, he had a good role model. He had a good mentor and a godly mentor, and he did right things. But the problem was that the high places, that they called them, was the old system of worship was not taken down. And because, as I've said before, half-hearted efforts when it comes to God causes issues. So, because they did not remove these high places, it left a door open for some disastrous consequences, for some, to the devil to do some of his work to get in there and have people's hearts not be all in it for the Lord. So this shows the theme of compromise. You can't compromise doing what's right in some areas, but failing to address a foundational issue of idolatry. Had the devastating consequences later on. But what happens is Joash decides that he comes up with this project. He's going to repair the temple. So he sets up this system for these priests to collect and use money for the repairs to repair this temple. And because of these high places not being taken down, and of course the compromise, idolatry being present, it seems these priests weren't being very faithful. There was a lack of oversight and accountability with the money that was being collected and what these priests were doing with it. After 23 years of trying to rebuild this temple, nothing had been done. You know, this lack of accountability and oversight had undermined the whole process, because the money was coming in, but it wasn't going for what it needed to go for. Sounds familiar, don't it? So Yoash comes in and he says, "This ain't working. We gotta figure something else out. Too long. We need a new system." So he makes this chest with a hole in it he puts beside the altar. And he tells there's certain offerings, because there's different offerings. They have different type offerings that people had to give. Like there were guilt and sin offerings, but there were other offerings too for the repair work and for other things. It's like when you're at church and you're going to give for a certain, you know, they have a benevolence fund, or they have a love offering for to pay the ministers that would preach. It's the same thing. So they had different ones. Well, so Joash says this chest that we put beside the altar is going to be the collection for these certain offerings. That this money is going to go toward repairing the temple, and the priests are not going to be in charge of this money. The workmen and the supervisors of the workmen are the ones that's going to handle this money. Because it turns out that the workers and the supervisors had been faithful with their work and the things that they were doing. And Joash seen that they had been faithful in the way they were handling themselves and their things. So they weren't going to need any oversight. Y'all showed yourselves, y'all proved yourselves to be faithful and handle things rightly. So I'm going to let y'all handle this on your own. And then the priest, he separated, so the priest got the sin and guilt offerings were specifically for the priest. So in other words, he said, this is your money, you handle it, and then this is the priest's money, and they can handle that. And that's how he solved the issue. This emphasizes the importance of faithful stewardship and creating a transparent system. And the importance of leadership that recognizes a problem and takes a decisive action to fix it. This is one of the things I've been going on about leadership. About what makes a real leader. A real leader recognizes what they need to do and they take action to do it. When they see things aren't working the way they used to, or the way that the things that the system that's been in place doesn't work for the current situation. If there is a problem, there needs to be a solution. And a leader finds that solution and implements that solution as quickly as possible. I think that our current leadership could learn an important lesson from Yoash. It also emphasizes the integrity of a new system, noting that the supervisors were not required to give an account of the money because they had already dealt faithfully. And that's when you have faithful people that approve themselves, they don't have to have as much oversight. But once you realize that there are people within a system that have not done things properly, even if there is the perception that there has been corruption or things that have been done wrong, oversight and transparency is necessary. Once it's proved through that oversight and transparency that things are done correctly, as much oversight is not needed as it once was. So he allowed as I said, the priests handled their business, the workmen handled their business, and the work got done. And the temple repairs was complete. Then in the next part of this chapter we come upon the consequences of compromise. Because that first part told us about stewardship, the importance of faithful stewardship, and transparency and accountability within stewardship. That is an integral part of faithful stewardship. This part teaches about the inevitable consequences of compromise. To the point where King Hazael of Syria threatens Jerusalem, and Joash, instead of trusting in God, takes all the sacred treasures, including those from the temple, and gives them to Hazael as a bribe. As we know, we've always heard the saying, you never negotiate with terrorists. You never try to bribe somebody. Who was it back in one of the previous chapters that Ahab did the same thing? He just came back for more. Devil come back for more. But this time what happened was he gave it to Hazael as a bribe, and the action directly contrasts with the earlier theme of temple restoration and revealed a lack of faith. He had faith enough to repair the house of God, but he didn't have faith enough to trust God when he was attacked. So he had to rely on worldly means for protection because he didn't trust God. And this leads us to the conclusion of shocking act of betrayal. And Joash's own servants assassinate him. This swift and violent end serves as a stark reminder that even a king who did what was right in some areas is not immune to judgment. This highlights the human failure and compromise, that human failure and compromise ultimately lead to downfall. But God's plan and the continuity of the kingdom remained because his son, Amaziah, succeeded him. And that's where we end. It says section where his son succeeds him. We don't rely on God. We try to rely on worldly means. We suffer those consequences. That's another one of those half-hearted devotion things. You know, as I said before, he won't show all. He won't show all of it. We interrupt God's plan when we don't give it to him. A lot of times he can't do anything for us when we do. Because in the end we have free will. We use our free will to usurp his authority. That's on us. Judgment will come. Anyway. The mosquitoes are eating me alive. I love y'all. I'm going to get back to praying. I'll see y'all back here at sunrise in the morning.